Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Unscripted. We are still in our mental health series. My name's Caitlin. You guys want to introduce yourselves and what you do here?
Yeah, I am Christina, and I'm one of the Harbortown associates here.
And I'm Beth, and I work in finance and the stewardship director.
And my name's Sarah. I'm the Next Generation Movement Leader.
Do you need to know what is your favorite Thanksgiving food?
Ooh.
Mac and cheese, hands down.
I always try to get my mom to do that every year, but she says no.
So good.
And mine's the classic pumpkin pie with Ready Whip.
Ooh.
Yeah, extra, like so much Ready Whip you can't see the pie.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't see the pie anymore.
Otherwise,
so
it's not worth it.
No, it's not.
I personally love like a good green bean casserole with the what's those like crispy onion
I
things?
think
yes,
the bread.
yeah.
Wait, no, it's like the cereal stuff.
No, the onion crisp
onion.
Yes.
things.
Oh,
Yes.
So
yeah.
good.
Interesting.
So good.
Mine's definitely dressing. Though I used to work at like an Amish restaurant, and they would make the best dressing.
Ooh.
So it is still my favorite.
I feel like you have to have a good dressing, otherwise it's just...
Otherwise, it's
Right. What's the
just
point?
really bad and like
Croutons.
slimy. Yeah, pretty much. So this week it's more of a conversation about mental health and how we grow spiritually through that. And so, what does it mean to you to live by faith?
I think for me, to live by faith means that I don't always know God's plan, but that I trust Him and what He is doing through me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree. And I think that part of that comes from age. So, like when I remember when I was in high school, not really understanding what that meant, but how God over the years has taken me from, this insecure girl in high school to being somebody that can be confident that what He says is true. And that does take time. But that's, it's important to find a good mentor that can help you navigate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, a lot of times I love to have plans and come up with my own, this is how my life is going to be, this is what I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to go. But just realizing that, my plans are not my own, and that's for God to kind of shape and mold for me, and understand that, He has a plan for my life, and I don't have control over that always. So.
What do they say? We make plans and God laughs.
Yeah. Right. I think that's pretty much true for my life.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think living through those plans, do you think it's possible to live through those plans and work for God and be empowered by the Holy Spirit and deal with a mental disorder?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I struggle so much with confidence. So anytime I get in my own head or I just am overthinking things, which happens often, I just think, okay, I need some God confidence. I can't do it, but He can.
Yeah.
So that helps me.
Yeah. And I started having panic attacks when I was 12. That I went through a situation that was life-altering for me. And I remember the very first panic attack I had, I didn't know what it was at the time. And it took me 6 years going to doctors and stuff to figure out what that was. I eventually was put on medication and stuff. But what I learned over time is that everything that God says in His Word is true, and that I can believe Him wholeheartedly, that He's never going to leave me. He's going to walk through that with me, which has helped me over the years try to navigate depression and anxiety and things like that.
Yeah. I think a lot of times it can be so hard because, as Christians, and especially for a lot of the students I know, because, I'm close with a lot of them and I'm talking to them a lot, and I know that they kind of struggle because a lot of them they don't have the same mindset as their peers. It's hard to be set apart, and it's hard to live a life that is focused on God and His vision when a lot of the people their age aren't necessarily living like that or making those choices. But man, it's so important. It really is. And I think we sometimes underestimate the power that we have over the people around us, and just for people to see the way we live our lives and the way we overcome mental health issues and what we do to combat that. It's just so important.
Yeah. I think a lot of these things that we're thinking, anxieties that we have and what students go through in our confidence, it creates these doubts and fears that we have. So what are some of those specific doubts or fears that you have that keep you from living your life serving God, or just doubting that in your journey?
I think for me, it has always been that I'm enough.
Yeah.
That who God says I am is enough. And I think part of that has been shaped by what people tell me that I am or am not.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't matter as much as it does, but it weighs heavily on me even now. I can see that in my older girls. They're teenagers, and I see that weigh on them. And I know that social media probably doesn't help that. That's something that I didn't have to deal with when I was in high school. So for me, for anxiety, because it started so early on, I think my initial reaction was to isolate. I'm a twin, which was really hard for my sister because I pulled back from her. I also have four other siblings, so I was always around people. But I remember when anxiety hit, I was like, I've got to be by myself. And what I learned over time is that I have to surround myself with other people. Otherwise, my anxiety will get worse, or the anxiety turns into almost like a paralysis, and I can't do anything. So I purposely had to surround myself with other like-minded people, whether they understood where I was coming from or not. But yeah, surrounding myself with people was really important for me. It still is.
Yeah, get into a small group so that you can talk to people that share your faith. I pray like Jesus is sitting right there. Like we're just talking and all the time. So I'm not so much a formal prayer, but I think that helps me. It's almost like he's talking me off the ledge a little bit, like relax, you're fine.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to look a little bit different for everybody.
Absolutely.
I always go back to the 5 love languages. There's a book about spiritual pathways, which is basically, the ways in which we personally connect with God the best. And there's a bunch of different ones, and it's going to be different for every person, right? So there's like worship, there's spending time in nature, there's listening to sermons. It's different for everybody. So while for some people maybe it is being around community, other people maybe it's being by yourself and having a safe space where you can kind of just relax and let go of pressures of being around people, or maybe it's listening to worship music. It's just figuring out what your spiritual pathway is and how that is best going to help you when you need it, and when you're feeling that anxiety and when you're feeling overwhelmed, what is going to fill you back up again.
Yeah, I think I've had the same experience where it's when I tell people what I do, they're like, what?
Yeah.
It's finding a way to ground back in Jesus and get into his word again. But not only that, it's finding a way to do that physically, ground yourself. I would always make sure I go through lists or something that's a routine.
Yeah.
Just when I'm super stressed out, what I always did in high school was so silly, but it just worked every time to ground myself, to get back into the word, was just if I'm panicking in the moment, I'd always go to, all right, I'm on the softball field and I'm at third base and the ball gets hit to me and there's a runner on second and first. What do I do? And so I'd always just find something to go through the steps and ground me in order to get back into the word. So I think what you're saying, everyone has different ways to kind of connect with God and refocus themselves so that they can get back to that state. So I think stuff like that is always super helpful, just to find how you can calm yourself down the most.
Yeah. And don't assume that that's that one thing that grounds you in one time is going to ground you forever.
Exactly.
They're going to change as you age and mature. Those ways are going to change.
I don't play softball anymore.
Yeah.
So it's more difficult.
Yeah.
How might it require faith for you to step into those plans that you think God has for you?
I think when you start to doubt yourself and what you can do, or maybe God's plan, because I think doubt will creep in. It's okay to remember that he is in control, but that if he is calling you to do something, he is going to equip you in order to do that. So you might be scared to death that might be, there's no way I can do that. How, this is not for me. But he's in control, and he is going to give you what you need. He has shaped you and molded you to do that specific thing that is in his plan for you.
So, I relate to that so much. I feel like a lot of times, I know with me specifically, being on the worship team and being on stage a lot, just with the things that I'm involved with and what I do, there's this pressure to just be perfect all the time. And there's this pressure that I need to wear the right outfit, or, make sure that I always sound perfect when I'm singing, or make sure that every prayer that comes out of my mouth is like worded absolutely perfectly. And sometimes I just feel so overwhelmed, like, God, why did you pick me to do this? Like, I am not equipped. I am not, like, there could be so many other people that could do this better than me. But I, in the back of my mind, have to remind myself always that, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. And if He put me in this position, then it must mean that I have it in me, and that, He has a plan, and that I'm there for a reason. And I think it's important to remember that.
Yeah.
A lot of times when it feels so like the pressure is just overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's something like what I've gone through, and I've shared with some students in our ministry, that like for me personally, I've always just had the spiritual gift of like just kind of believing in faith, and just I've always understand that like, yeah, I struggle, but God has a plan for me. But at the same time, I'm someone with like severe anxiety, and I'm like, how does that function? And so personally for me, I've tried to like function in having both of those, but I know people have different stories. So do you guys find it impossible to live through God's plan and please God without having faith all the time?
Yes, I think that it would be really difficult not to trust God and believe in Him and have faith in Him, and still live everyday life. I feel like that would be almost a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And so for me, if I don't believe, or if I start to doubt that He's with me, then I get in a really bad, unsteady place. So for me, it's absolutely part of the anchor that, keeps me grounded.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think I'm reading a book right now called Pure Praise, and in the book, one of the weeks it talked a little bit about how when we choose to praise God and we choose to worship God, but we don't actually believe in the things He has in store for us, and we don't actually believe that He's in control of our life, to Him it's just noise, And I think like a lot of times we can, if we say we're Christians and if we, have this like persona that we're a Christian, but we don't actually believe the things that He tells us, it's just noise to Him.
Yeah. Wow, that is a great point. So today I want you guys, what can you share with students about living out their faith and struggling with confidence and mental disorders? What is something that you can share with them?
I remember struggling with confidence, like elementary school even, getting up to do, when they used to bring you up and do the times tables in school. I hated that. It would just bring so much stress on me because I knew it, but I would get up there and think, what am I doing? So I think with the age thing, it helped. As I got older, I realized what that was and being able to understand it a little bit more. But I think making sure that you spend time in the Word around people that believe the same things is helping you dissect or understand that a little bit better. So you're not turning to maybe the wrong way of handling those stresses or anxieties, but that you are, relying on God to get you through that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to, like, at that age to remember, and I have to remind myself, I'm 26 years old, and I still have to remind myself that, just because we follow Jesus and just because we call ourselves Christians, and it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. Like, it's so important that we give ourselves grace and we give ourselves understanding and realize that, there's no mistake that we are going to make that is too big, that God's going to be like, you know what, I give up on you. Like, I'm done. Right. That's it. So I think giving yourself grace in the season that you're in, and especially in high school, like, it's rough. So you have to remember, like, yeah, we're going to mess up, and we're not always going to be perfect, and, it's okay, and God still loves us, but it's that we keep trying, and it's that we want to get better, and it's that we want to, hold ourselves to a higher standard that is important to God.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember that your life is not going to go the way that you want it to.
Right.
It's not going to go the way that you have planned. And if you think that, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, because that's just not the way life works. But
And I'd be a pop star.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would be a surgeon, and here I am, or not. But God's plan is always perfect, and He's never going to fail you. You're going to come up against challenges that you're going to feel like are insurmountable. You're not going to get past them, but you will. And over time, you're going to see God's faithfulness, and that makes it easier to trust Him in the long term. So right now, you may be struggling with peer pressure or self-confidence or just believing that you're enough. But over time, those fears might not go away. Those things may not go away.
Yeah.
But if you keep trusting that God is who He says that He is, then you'll just continue to grow.
Yeah, these things are so real, and they are happening to middle schoolers, high schoolers, and adults. And so I really appreciate you guys coming in and sharing how you've navigated through life, how you've found yourself through Jesus, how you've navigated to find Jesus, struggling with all of this. And I appreciate it because they're going through the same things.
Yeah.
We all go through it together. So thanks for joining us. Next week we will continue this series. See you guys later.
See you guys.